Happy Sabbath. Earth's Closing Events is the title for the whole week. But when I come here, I only do one scripture per day. So in the following 10 minutes, I want to analyze one scripture, one little verse, which is your memory verse. And if you can memorize this one, it will be a blessing for you for the whole day. Not only for the whole day, for the whole week. Repeat it with me. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom. Buy instruction. Buy wisdom and buy understanding. What is the meaning of this truth? What is it talking about when it's truth? Truth is wisdom. Truth is instruction. Truth is understanding. Truth is seeing everything from God's perspective. But Pastor Benjamin, do I have to buy that? How am I going to purchase that? There's a valid question. That question is, how am I supposed to purchase truth? And here is the answer. I'm not thinking like Simon the magician, the sorcerer, who was willing to pay $150,000 for the wisdom of Paul and the miracles of Paul and Jesus Christ. That's not what we're talking about. But there's a price that you need to pay. There's a price. For instance, you are a wonderful lady and two people fall in love with you. One is a wealthy liar and the other one is a poor, honest man. And you walk down the aisle, the obvious one, with a poor guy. And you say, I do, with a poor guy. And you promise to be with a poor guy for the rest of his life. It isn't that you bought truth, but there was a price that you had to pay in order to be genuine, filled with integrity, with a man of truth. That's what it means to buy truth. Let me give you another example. Let's say you are applying for a job and you're supposed to keep the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. 6 days you shall work, not 5, 6. But on the 7th is the day of the Lord your God. For you and your sojourner and the slave and the servant who is within our gates. So you keep the Sabbath. You tell your pastor, Pastor, I need a Sabbath letter. And the pastor forgets it, doesn't give it to you. You tell your elder, hey elder, can you give me a Sabbath letter? And the elder forgets it, doesn't give it to you. You go to the website and you cannot find it. And you're stuck. And the employer says, no worky, no eaty. So you go down and you say, I lost my job. It was going to pay me $150,000 a year. I am a loser. You're not a loser. You purchased. That's the price you had to pay for truth. It's not that you're paying an exchange, a financial transaction. No, you are paying a price for the truth of the Ten Commandments, for the truth of a family filled with integrity, for a truth of a doctrine, for a truth of joining a church. That's the message for today, based on Proverbs 23:23. Buy the truth and do not sell it. I finish with a story. And this is a very, very, very difficult story to tell. But I just want to tell you how it is. I don't have the technique to tell the story. I've asked permission from all the participants. This story started 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago. But about 2 months ago, I was preaching in the Acton Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I was preaching my heart out, and I was making an appeal, and I was saying, I would like somebody joining and helping to build a building project. We don't have a church. A Molotov cocktail has been thrown and burned our church. We're meeting outside. Our children are meeting in the frozen grass. Our adults are meeting in the fellowship hall. We don't have a church. We need a church. I was preaching in the middle of my sermon. And immediately, as soon as I finished my sermon, there was this lady walking in. And she said, I'm going to give. I'm going to contribute. I'm not going to tell you the amount because she would not have wanted me to share with you the amount. But it was huge. But later this afternoon, later the following day, I was shocked to my core. I was completely destroyed. Because behind that telephone call from John, one of the children, Pastor, can you visit and anoint my mom? What's wrong? Pastor, please, it's very serious. Can you please come? Man, I took a 60-yard dash, 90 miles an hour, as fast as I could, all the way to the hotel in Loma Linda. And I arrived on time to do a blessing for her. The family did whatever they could to save her. The doctors did whatever they could. They traveled all over the world. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars. But a week went by, and she started going downhill. 2 weeks go by, a month go by, and then she breathed her last. And it was sad. This Sabbath afternoon at 3:30, today at 3:30, I will have the privilege of doing the sermon for the burial. And I really don't have any words to say. But I just want to finish with one incident that happened between the two. And the question always was in my mind, how did he marry her? That was my question. So I asked, can you tell me a story of how you met? And the husband told me, John Carter, the evangelist. It all begins with John Carter, the great preacher, the world-renowned evangelist, had a crusade in 1995. So his team that day, in the month of May, organizes canvassing the entire city of Los Angeles. We are going to saturate Los Angeles with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So Mary Jane Molina responds to the invitation of Jesus Christ, grabs a bunch of flyers in her hand, and starts handing out everywhere, to everyone, to everybody, in any language, English, Spanish, Filipino, French, Tagalog, any language. Come to the Shrine Auditorium. The great Glendale evangelist John Carter will be preaching the three angels' message. Come and join us. So she goes door to door, door to door, door to door, when all of a sudden she opens the door, and on the other side there's a 25-year-old mestizo, handsome man from the Philippines. And so he looks to him in the eyes, and she looks at him in the eyes, and he looks to her in the eyes, and they exchange. They had never met before. They exchange looks and views and seeing sight of each other. Now he says it was love at first sight. Well, it was for him, but not for her. It was not love at first sight for her. But they look at each other, they shake hands, and she says, I have a question for you, sir. Yes, what's your question? Would you like to come to the evangelistic series of John Carter? And he says, yes, you bet, I will go. Would you like to take note of the address? Yes. Would you like to take note of the time? It's going to be at 7 p.m. every night. Yes, he says, I will go to that address and I will go to that time every night, even if you want me to go every day of my life. Boy, he was in love with her. Then, after 5 minutes of interacting between them, she gives him a flyer. He takes the flyer and he looks at her with like a man in love. He turns around and says, ladies and gentlemen, to the office. There are about 10 people in the office. Secretary and clerk and custodial and people speaking Spanish. So he says, ladies and gentlemen, this is 5 minutes after meeting her. I have an announcement to make. This is Granville. Ladies and gentlemen, this lady next to me is my new girlfriend. Everyone starts laughing. Everyone starts cracking up. But not her. She is red in the face. She is embarrassed. Your girlfriend? What are you talking about? I'm just giving you an invitation. And he says, well, but I already made the announcement. Well, he ended up going that night. It was a nice joke. She had to swallow the joke. Next night he was there. Following night he was there. At the end of 3, 4, 5 months, he was baptized in the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a new member. Still, 30 years later, I had a question for him. How was it? And I asked him that question up in the hospital. How was it that she fell in love with you? I know you, and you are you, and she is she. How did she fall in love with you? How were you able to convince her? Well, he didn't give me an answer. Was he your first suitor? I asked her. Yes, that was my first boyfriend, the first man, number one. I asked the same question to him. Was she your first girlfriend? And he looked down and he says, only heaven has the record. So that is my working hypothesis. How can this man, with many women, with a past that wasn't perfect, with no knowledge of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, out in the world, celebrating life, having fun, making announcements like that, making jokes, marries the most pious Ellen White type, good-looking, precious woman? How did he do that? How did that happen? Well, I have a working hypothesis. I believe that in May of 1995, when he declared his love to her, when he proposed a few months later, when he proposed marriage to her, she probably made the following prayer. Dear God, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Is it your will for me to marry Granville? Are you in favor of this decision? Should I say yes to him? Please show me the way. I will do whatever you ask me to do. I believe that God said, your mission in life, Mary Jane, please say yes, because your mission in life, your purpose in life, the reason why you breathe on this planet is for you to save your husband, to save your son, number one, to save your son, number two, to save those three and bring them to heaven. But Lord, she probably said, what about my happiness? I don't like him. He just made an announcement. I don't like him yet. Maybe in the future, but right now. And maybe the Lord said, your happiness is secondary, Mary Jane. Your happiness is not primary. Maybe it will come in the future. Right now, I need you to save him, to save your child, number one, and to save your child, number two. And I believe that if the husband had not been in the world, if he had been a wonderful Christian, a wonderful Seventh-day Adventist, maybe she would not have married him, because she had several of those suitors in Filipino Union College. I believe that the reason why he married her is because she believed that that was her mission in life. She believed that that was the reason why she was brought into this world. She could have been a nun serving to the whole world. She could have been a nurse for the Red Cross, serving the world, because she was very generous. But no, she went into this marriage because deep in her heart, God, the plan of God, according to her letters, according to the letters, God's plan for her life was the transformation of her family, was the salvation of her husband, was the salvation of her son, number one, and was the salvation of her son, number two. Her happiness was secondary. Her mission and her obedience to God, and as an act of faith, her obedience to God was to serve God and to follow the purpose of God for the rest of her life. How great was Mary Jane Molina? How awesome was Mary Jane Molina? Because she served a great God and an awesome God.